Hello everyone, my name is Youngsun Kwak. I am a science educator specialized in teacher education. So in my lessons, I will talk about 4 topics. Lesson 1 is about teacher education paradigm. I will compare teacher education paradigm and research paradigm and talk about 4 different teacher education paradigms. And lesson 2 is about what is teacher professionalism. So teacher is a professional job and occupation. So why teaching is a professional job? We will review pedagogical content knowledge, and we will also talk about action research and lesson study, the dimensions of instructional consulting and how to do it. That is the lesson 2. And the lesson 3 is about ways of teaching in science and mathematics. We will compare Piaget and Vygotsky and their views on learning and their views on language. And the last lesson is about scientific writing and lesson planning with two-means argumentation pattern. We could use two-means reasoning or argumentation structure in planning our science and mathematics lessons. So let's begin. Lesson 1 is about teacher education paradigms. So the main activity or your reflection activity is about what is a teacher education paradigm, and then what is the difference between teacher education paradigm and research paradigm. And the third one is which paradigm emphasizes teacher empowerment. Teacher empowerment is emphasized in these days related with teachers' professional learning community, so-called PLC. So we will talk about what is teacher empowerment. And then we will talk about what is the paradigm for teacher agency, which is emphasized in the OECD's Education 2030. So let's begin with the comparison between teacher education paradigm and the research paradigm. As you can see, there are 4 teacher education paradigms. The first one is the effective teacher, and the second one is the reflective teacher, and the third one is the inquiring teacher, and the first one is the transformative teacher. As you can see, the first one is about changing the formula or the formalities of what we do and how we do. So there is a connection between research paradigms and teacher education paradigms. So let's review about the research paradigms. This one is suggested by the Handbook of Qualitative Research, which has 4 or 5 versions up to now. Whenever we talk about research, we need to examine the research paradigm. The first one is ontology. Ontology means what is the being. So there are several versions of research paradigm. One is positivism, and it also connected with post-positivism, and there is a critical theory, etc. And there is a constructivism. And the last one is participatory. Participatory paradigm is emphasized these days along with ecological participation and conservation and substantiality and so on. So when you say positivism, they believe there is a real reality out there, which is apprehendable, and there is objective truth, and the findings are true. This one is epistemology, which is about what is knowledge and what is knowing. So whenever you talk about paradigm, you need to ask 3 questions. What is being? And what is knowing? Or what is knowledge? And there is a connection between ontology and epistemology, which is method. How to get the knowledge out of ontology, out of being. So there are 3 components in research paradigms. So the first position or first research paradigm is positivism or post-positivism, which is about there is a real reality and there is the objective truth, and they depend on experimental or manipulation of a variable. They mainly or chiefly depend on quantitative research method. Post-positivism is still positivism, but they insist or they contend that there is probabilistically apprehendable truth, which is findings probably true, and they propose falsification. You cannot verify something, but you can falsify something. So their findings are probably true. And there is another research paradigm, so-called critical theory and so on. They propose a historical realism, which means reality is changing by social, political, cultural, economic, ethnic, and gender values. And the reality is still crystallized over time. I mean, the one who in the power changes, then the reality could be changed. And they depend on dialogic or dialectical method of research. And they mainly depend on qualitative research. And there is another paradigm called constructivism, which is a little bit different from constructivist theory in learning psychology. When we say constructivism in research paradigm, they say that the reality is relative. I mean, reality is local and specific and co-constructed by participant. So their reality are constructed, co-constructed by the participant. And there could be multiple realities depending on the participants, on the subject. So they also usually use qualitative research method and hermeneutical or interpretive research method. And the last paradigm is about participatory. They claim that there is a participative reality, which is a subjective, objective, or intersubjective reality, co-created by mind and given cosmos and ecology. And they claim critical subjectivity in participatory transaction with the cosmos. And they also claim or they also contend political participation in collaborative action inquiry. So these are 4 research paradigms which matches with the teacher education paradigm. Along with research paradigms, there is a teacher education paradigm. The first one is the effective teacher, which is aligned with positivism or post-positivist paradigm, which emphasizes effective teacher who do the job and do an effective job, and they emphasize standards and teacher competencies. And the second one is critical theory and constructivism and participatory paradigm, which aligns with reflective, inquiring, and transformative teacher education paradigm. You can collapse these three paradigms and compare with these three teacher education paradigms. I mean, for the reflective teacher education paradigm and the inquiring teacher education paradigm and the transformative teacher education paradigm, these three paradigms are aligned with these three research paradigms. Their emphasis are a little bit different depending on which paradigms they depend on, but they emphasize reflective, inquiring, and transformative teachers. And there is some expression representing these three teacher paradigms. Teacher as a researcher and a knowledge base for teaching, which provides some kind of rationale for why teaching is professionalism, why teachers are professionals. And there is action research, which is also resulted from these three research teacher education paradigms. The big difference between the effective teacher and the other teacher education paradigms are, this one is the outside discourse of teacher community, and these three teacher education paradigms are from the teacher community. I mean, this is within community discourse of teachers. This is the outer or outside of teacher education community. They emphasize the effective teacher paradigm. Then let's look at the four different teacher education paradigms. The first one is the effective teacher, which is a kind of discourse which governed teacher education for the past 30 years and is based on economic perspective on education. According to the effective teacher paradigm, schools and teachers aim to prepare students with human resource that can contribute to the country's economic success, and they value effective and efficient things that bring maximum output with minimum input, which is economical logic. So this paradigm is also a model for the age of accountability and teacher performativity. Teachers are accountable for how much their students performed or accomplished. So in an effective teacher education model, standards-based approach to teaching is emphasized, which emphasizes explicitly referencing educational research or inquiry result, which is also called teacher-proof curriculum or teacher-proof teaching and learning method. In other words, rather than relying on intuition through teachers' experience or their professionalism, the effective teacher education paradigm emphasizes that teachers do teaching activities by referring to research results that have been proven effective. Teacher doesn't need to rely on their expertise or their professionalism. They just follow the rules or what the research says, which result in effective teaching and learning. This is the effective teacher paradigm. However, this first teacher education paradigm, so-called the effective teacher paradigm, moves away from it and moves on to the other three teacher education paradigms. The period of research on teacher effectiveness and teacher competency is evaluated as having little effect on teacher education, and teacher education research shift to a reflective and inquiring teacher paradigm. The second paradigm is the reflective teacher education paradigm. The expression teaching as a reflective activity emerged in the United Kingdom as a way to cope with the increasing influence of the effective teacher model, which is emphasized by Stenhouse and Sean. And they emphasize teachers' opportunities for learning to learn, which results in learning to teach. And Sean emphasized reflective practice. He insisted on the fundamental difference between the theoretical knowledge and practical knowledge, and argued that theory should always be reinterpreted in practice. By connecting theory and practice, teachers get the so-called practical knowing or practical knowledge. Sean emphasized teachers' professional knowledge base through reflective practice, which could be accumulated through praxis. When we heard praxis, which is different from simple practice, praxis means theory-based practice. Teachers are doing what they do based on the theory or knowledge. So praxis is not a simple practice, but a practice based on concept and principles. That is a dialectical combination of reflection and practice. So this one is the reflective teacher, which emphasizes teachers' growing professionalism and growing knowledge base based on their praxis, so-called theory-based practice. The third teacher education paradigm is the inquiring teacher. When we say reflective teaching, which is not premised by the teacher's tendency to research. Doing research is not the prerequisite or premise of reflective teachers. But when we say the inquiring teacher, teachers conduct action research with their practice and with their everyday classroom reality. The inquiring teacher was emphasized by Stenhouse, and he suggested that teachers' position should be elevated to a critical researcher for curriculum development and evaluation using the concept of the teacher as researcher. And teacher as a researcher emerged as a specialty required by teachers, and which resulted in the introduction of action research, which means the actor or the practitioner in the field conduct research, and they can bridge the gap between theory and the practice. And the teacher as a researcher, the role of a teacher as a researcher is being emphasized in order to solve problems in their own schools and classrooms and seek practical alternatives. They point out or focus on some problems they could meet in their own teaching and classroom situations, and they conduct systematic inquiry and then figure out what the problem is and what could be the solution, and then they improve the situation by implementing the alternatives in their own teaching. The last teacher education paradigm is a transformative teacher paradigm, which combines the element of the reflective teacher and the inquiring teacher models. But when we say the transformative teacher education paradigm, which emphasizes activist dimension, which is in line with the participatory or postmodern research paradigm. When we say participatory research paradigm, this paradigm emphasizes action and practice. Action is the standard of truth recognition. So in the transformative teacher paradigm, teachers must take on the new responsibility of being a researcher who could solve their own classroom problems or problematics, and who practice themselves as a tool for transformation to change society. They pursue, in transformative teacher paradigm, teachers pursue in social justice and integration. So this paradigm combines reflective teacher and inquiring teacher and acting teacher who put what they know into their practice for a better society or for a better educational opportunities. Okay, then let's summarize between these four teacher education paradigms. This one is written in Chinese language. It says theory or knowing, theoretical knowledge or knowing. And this one says wisdom. It's a practical embodied knowledge. It's so-called living. We should not learn teaching by theory or by the book. We need to practice, or we need to embody what we know into what we do, what we practice. So teachers need to learn by doing. And this was one way of communication. Whenever we say we are doing something based on what we know, this one is theory into practice, but we need to reflect what we have done in our classrooms. This is the reverse direction. It's called reflection. This is what reflective teacher means. You need to turn your gaze inside yourself and seeing yourself. This one is a reflection. This one is also called action research. Based on what you do, you some kind of draws out. You draw out some kind of practical knowing or practical knowledge. That is reflection. So there is some change depending on which paradigm, which teacher education paradigm you are in, there is a teacher knowledge. There is a theoretical knowledge and there is a practical knowledge, so-called wisdom. And there is a teacher's knowledge base. There is implicit knowledge base. But you needed to make it explicit. And you needed to develop or accumulate your knowledge base of teaching. And there is a mode of practice. In effective teacher, they emphasized this aspect. Theoretical knowing, implicit knowledge base, and evidence-based practice. You need to practice based on what the research says. But when you say reflective teacher, inquiring teacher, and transformative teacher, you are emphasizing teacher's reflection and teacher's reflective practice and teacher's explicit knowledge base and teacher's practical knowledge and their action research. So, in summary, there are 4 different teacher education paradigms. One is outside of teacher's community. It's called the effective teacher, which features teacher proof curriculum or teacher proof practice. And the other 3 teacher education paradigm is the reflective, inquiring, and transformative teacher. In these days, teacher education emphasizes so-called informed professionalism, which emphasizes or focuses on integration of theory and practice through research-based thinking and reasoning. And research-based teacher education, so-called teacher as a researcher. And they also emphasize integration of educational theory and practice. They also emphasize reflective practice. Please remember what reflection is. It's about reflecting on your own practice and then learning through research by means of action research or so-called practitioner research, which leads to expansion of teacher's knowledge base, which confirms teacher professionalism. So, with your activity sheets, try to reflect on what is teacher education paradigm, and then try to tell the difference between teacher education paradigm and the research paradigm and how they are related. And there is some kind of a paradigm shift in teacher education. They emphasize teacher empowerment by giving teacher or by providing teacher research opportunities, reflective opportunities, and transformative activist, which emphasize teachers doing and practice, not just knowing. And try to review what is the paradigm for the teacher agency emphasized in the OECD's Education 2030. There is a clue in agency part. This one shows OECD's compass, which shows the direction we need to go forward until 2030. Can you see this student agency along with teacher agency? What is the meaning of teacher agency? And which teacher education paradigm is appropriate for teacher agency? Think about it. Thank you very much.